Welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate you going out of your way, liking, commenting, and subscribing. That helps me and the channel out a lot, so that is very much appreciated. Now let's talk about the different colors that you need when you are fluke fishing. A fluke is a very good bait in the post spawn. Now it's not a big fish bait, it's more of a numbers bait. It gives you a lot of clues and it will lead you into the right direction on tough fishing days. So I love this bait also in the fall, but right now we are in the post spawn, and a fluke is something that I'm always going to have rigged up because it just does a little bit more than your other baits that you're going to fish weightless around the spawning fish, like a Cinco or something like that. It's going to show you a few things that a Cinco just doesn't. And you may fish through an area with a Cinco. I rig the bait up on the same exact hook and the same rod, reel, and line that I do on a Cinco, so you can take your Cinco off, put a fluke on, and maybe grub you out another bite or two. I do that a lot. So my colors, I have a few shad patterns and I have a few bluegill patterns, and then just patterns that catch fish, and I don't know exactly what they're imitating. So let's start on the shad pattern. So your most basic is going to be a white or a pearl. This is a white super fluke. I only fish a Zoom Super Fluke because I want my bait to feel exactly the same no matter what color I'm throwing. So every one of these baits is going to be a Zoom Super Fluke. So these colors are all going to be Zoom colors, but this is a pearl or a white. Now, obviously, this isn't the most realistic shad looking color, but this is a color that I'm going to throw in that off-colored water. So if you're swimming a white jig and for whatever reason they just stop biting the white swim jig, a white fluke is a great way to imitate the same fish, but be a little less intense on those fish. So a white fluke. Now, once I get into a little bit clearer water, not gin clear water, but a little bit clear water, I go with this color called bait fish. This is one of my sneaky colors. What I like about this, it's kind of like that smoke and shad color, but the back is just not as black. It's a little grayer. You've got all kinds of glitter in there. This bait really shines in clear water. If I'm not in super clear water, I really like this because I can still see my bait. I think the fish can pick it up good, and it's just one of those natural colors, but still stands out enough to where you can see it, because I think that's very important with fluke fishing. You want to be able to see your bait every once in a while. Not all the time, but once you're bringing it back to the boat, once it hits the water, you kind of want to get a good feel for what the bait's doing. So a bait fish color fluke. Now, as I get into clear water, I fish the Tennessee River a lot. We have a lot of really clear water. If we don't get any rain for a while, the water gets pretty clear. I mean, we're talking 4, maybe even 5 feet of visibility at times. And you got to have some type of blue glimmer, translucent color. Now, this isn't a color that I ever threw in Florida in that tannic colored water. This is more of a greenish tint or just clear water. And that is disco green. Now, this is a color that works really well out in the Carolinas. If you ever go to Hartwell or any of those clear lakes, disco green. This is my translucent. This is, not a blue glimmer, but it's a great color, very similar to blue glimmer, and it's called disco green. If you can find that one, that is a killer fluke color. Now, that's pretty much all I need when it comes to shad imitators. I try to keep it as simple as possible. I don't want to spin my wheels out because I don't have one particular color. I feel like 3 bait fish colors is enough. Cloudy, sunny, tannic water, clear water, whatever it may be. When you're covering shad, you really need about 3 colors. So keeping it simple, very important. Soft plastics do weigh a lot. You don't want to have a million bags of soft plastics in your boat. You will weigh your boat down. So as we get more into the brim, I like a watermelon or a watermelon magic. Now, you could probably throw a green pumpkin for whatever reason. I feel like it doesn't matter too much. I think, this bait's moving quite a bit, so I don't think that really matters. But it just seems like watermelon in a fluke seems like it does better than green pumpkin. I don't even throw a green pumpkin in the fluke, but not to say that they wouldn't eat it, because I know they would, but it just seems like watermelon is one of those colors, and really clear water, probably the only color you need when you're imitating stuff other than bait fish. Now, Now, this is not a big change, but watermelon red. Now, this is a color that really shines in tannic colored water or that greenish stained water. So anytime you're fishing lakes that have a stain, you still want visibility. This is a clear water bait at the end of the day. You're not going to go throw this in muddy water, but this is a bait that works extremely well in Florida. This may be the only color you need in Florida on those tannic colored lakes. You know, that light tea stain colored water. You can do so much with this bait. I mean, you can dead stick it, you know, fish it like you would a Cinco, where you just throw it out and let it fall on a semi-slack line. Don't move it. You know, great on bedfish. It's great fishing it fast on top, whatever you want to do. But a watermelon red is an staple. You know, I talk about some of these different colors, the chrome and blue lipless crankbait, you know, the white and chartreuse spinnerbait. That's where we're at with the watermelon red Fluke. You got to have a bag of these in your boat at all times. If it's the Tennessee River green stain, or it's the tannic stain, or just anything in between, a watermelon red Fluke, dynamite. Now, these last two colors, kind of interesting, but a baby bass. Now, this is not far off from where we're at with the watermelons and the watermelon reds. You have a lot of green in it, but you also have some white in it. So you can see it. It's going to show up in little dirtier water. And then for obvious reasons around the spawn, where we're at now, post-spawn, bass eat their fry, bass eat the young bass, and a baby bass colored anything. If it's a Cinco or a Fluke, it's just magic this time of year. And really, it's a great color anytime. I mean, how could you not? Little white pearl, green fleck, and then a watermelon back. You know, that is going to work most of the time anyways. But it's another one of those deals where I can see it when I'm tracking it back to the boat. Important sometimes. So baby bass, you got to have it. Now the last one, this is one you've probably heard of. I don't know if you've ever thrown it. This catches smallmouth, and this is basically going to do what a floating worm does. You just, if you're familiar with a Fluke and you've got confidence in a Fluke and caught a lot of fish on it, this will be a lot easier to transition to this than to a floating worm, and you're going to catch a lot of those same fish. So I throw a bubblegum Fluke quite a bit, especially this time of year. I like it in the pre-spawn as well, you know, right when we get close to spawning. Great color. Like I said earlier, I've caught smallmouth on this. And if you think of all the baits that work really well in pink, your morning dawns, on a drop shot and stuff like that, pink is just a really natural color. Shad are pink. You know, there's a lot of pink in a shad. So a pink bait is not totally crazy to think that fish would like this. And it doesn't have to be in any just, you know, post-spawn or pre-spawn or anything like that. They bite a pink, you know, whenever they're biting a Fluke. So you got to have a pink. It is completely different than those other colors I've shown you. The bubblegum and a super Fluke is a killer color. So those are the 7 colors that I use. Now, I talked about this earlier in the video. I rig it up on a 4-aught EWG hook. This is the same hook that I fish my Cincos with. I typically only throw it on 15-pound test fluorocarbon and a 7.3 medium heavy rod. So little lighter bait, that extra 3 inches on that rod, I can really launch it because it is not the easiest bait to cast, and you do need to make long casts at times. And I rig this bait up a little bit different than I think the standard way. So for the first 10 years I fished this bait, I would rig this up coming out the back. I fished with a guy, and he had it rigged up the other way. He was a Carolina guy, which a Carolina, in the Carolinas, the Fluke is a huge deal, and he had it rigged up the other way. So I started rigging it up the other way, and what I find when you rig it up with the point of the hook coming out on this side, that bait dances, and you can jerk it on a semi-slack line, and it's basically not going to move, and it's just going to, and I think if you can get your bait to go more side to side action, I think you get a lot more bang for your buck with this bait. So I don't want this bait coming right back to the boat. I want it dancing and moving, and you always jerk it on a semi-slack line. That keeps it natural. That doesn't tune the bait back to you. It's just going to keep it side to side. That's what you want. And I feel like rigging it up where the point of the hook is coming out here, it's going to keep that bait like that, and it just seems like you get a whole lot more action. So try rigging it that way. That's the only way I rig it now, if it's in the fall or in the spring, whenever I'm throwing it. But a Super Fluke by Zoom in those 7 colors, dynamite this time of year. A lot of those days where your practice was amazing and it just doesn't seem to be going that way, this is a great way to grub you out a limit and catch big fish while you're doing it. So try a Super Fluke in those colors in the post spawn. You'll really like what this bait can do for you. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the water.